David, we can't hear
Yes,
you.
I
Sorry.
know. I always
Awesome.
forget.
Thanks, David.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Gaurav. And before I say anything, you'll hear more about this at another
어차피 이거
time.
막아놨지 상관없지. 아까 전에
Whoa. Could I suggest everyone turn off their microphone, please? So before I forget, we made some announcements last night, some awards for exceptional service through the region. And one of the recipients for exceptional service to AP was to Gaurav. And that was for, I'll read it, for his exceptional commitment and work hosting and organizing monthly regional A talks for the benefit of the AIESEC alumni community. And congratulations, Gaurav. And you're going to find everybody tonight. This is an example as to why Gaurav was a deserving winner of this. And something that I neglected to mention last night too. Gaurav has had extraordinary backup from both Annalise and especially from Stefan through this entire initiative. Okay, just a few minutes, please, to sort of provide some context for tonight's session. How many of you are familiar with the phrase that was used by William Shakespeare in Henry V, where he referred to a band of brothers? Most of you are familiar with that phrase, but you may not know that that's where it originated. I'm going to speak a little bit to that. You know, this year has been extraordinarily challenging for most of us, obviously through COVID, and it's affected some of us more than others. I know in my own case, I've experienced some tragedies, some ups and downs in career, all kinds of pivots that were required. But the point I want to make is that what we're building in the AIESEC alumni community is a tribe. It is a band of brothers and sisters, because these initiatives are much more now than simply career or business. They're about life, the quality of life, joy, being productive. You know, if you want to be have impact through your life, it's important to have good health. So again, this is to provide some context for tonight's session. What I would encourage everyone to do is to be vulnerable, because we are all here for each other. Share, be open, accept that we're not individually supermen or women. We are all subject to life's ups and downs, and yet here we are in a community where there are people there for us. And I should just say as well, to set an example, 20 years ago, I burned out. I thought that that the way to react to attacks in business was to work harder rather than understand how to maintain balance in my life. And I burned out. So I wish I'd heard tonight's session back then. Just in conclusion, at the very end of the session, we're going to introduce to you something that was announced last night at our end of year function, which is an initiative, again, building around this whole idea that we need to be conscious of our health, our productivity, our joy. And having said all that, it's my great pleasure to introduce Astuti, but I'm going to pass it back to Gaurav, who will introduce her in much more detail. And one last thing before I forget, and I'm sorry, this is just who I am, because we will forget otherwise. I want to send out a personal thank you to Edwin, the president of AIESEC Alumni in Indonesia, because it was Edwin who first suggested Astuti, and we're grateful for him to do that. Okay, enough from me. I'm really excited about the session. Back to you, Gaurav.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, David. Yes, a big thank you. Big thank you to Edwin as well. And before, you know, of course, we have some expectations. You know, like always, we always expect you to be engaged and participate as enthusiastically as possible. Highly, highly, highly encourage you to keep your camera on, because that just improves like the personal kind of touch, even though we're all speaking to each other virtually. Mute yourself when you're not speaking and unmute yourself when you need to. Have a pen and paper with you if you want to follow the questions, write them down on your phone, whatever is easiest for you. This presentation is not going to be a presentation. It's going to be a little different. it's going to be a conversation between Astuti and I. So please feel free to, ask your questions whenever you feel like, or put them in the chat. Since I am presenting, I will not be able to see the chat, but Stefan over here is going to be going through the chat and, putting us through with any questions that might be relevant to the topic that we're discussing at the moment. So those are expectations, yeah. Quick agenda, we've gone through some welcomes. I'll introduce Astuti, and of course we'll go through our conversation about burnout and building resilience. And then maybe we'll have a little feedback first and then go into a Q&A, more informal Q&A space later when everyone has a little more time. All right, so enough of me. Let's talk about Astuti, and I'm really excited for this. And I told her too when we were practicing this that it's a little personal for me too, because I've experienced burnout, but there wasn't really anyone to tell us how to kind of deal with it or what happens, or what are the signs to look out for when you're burning out. But a little bit about Astuti before that. So Astuti joined AIESEC in 1994 in Universitas, and I hope I'm getting this right, Pajajaran. Okay, awesome. In Bandung, Indonesia, and she was also AIESEC national president for Indonesia in 1994. The way she found, I guess, her passion for AIESEC was when she went on exchange in Ohio for a year in the US, and she really wanted to bring back that exchange experience to Indonesia and develop youth leadership. Of course, in AIESEC, she went through various roles, and National Committee President was one of them, and she was also on AIESEC International for 2 years. And her AIESEC International experience is very interesting, and I'll tell you guys why in a second. In AIESEC International, of course, she was responsible for half of Europe and half of Asia Pacific, and she was also one of the members of the AI team who put together a foundation for a long-term global vision that we see, at AIESEC, and we have this every 5 years. So she was part of the AIESEC 2005, vision that we had, the 2005 vision. And she also put in some of the tools together. So, AIESEC.net that we see, or the insight that was there some time ago, she was responsible for that. But I think the coolest thing that's, I think, most relevant today also is she was part of the founding team for the AIESEC values. So, everything that you have to teach your members in induction, she is responsible for that. She's one of the founding members of that. I thought that was really cool. And of course, we have to learn it and probably, see it almost every day in your AIESEC communities. But that's her AIESEC experience. In her corporate life, she was working for UBS, which is, of course, one of the biggest banks in the world. She was part of the HR team, and she was an HR leader, actually, in Switzerland. And after leaving her job at UBS, part of the HR team, she now runs her own company, and she's become a subconscious mind reprogrammer and a life coach. So what she says is she's helping go-getters from around the world to live an equilibrium life of fulfillment and success by aligning their conscious and subconscious mind to work together. She's doing this through her company called Uplift My Life Today, and we're very excited to welcome Astuti. So Astuti, after that small introduction, and really cool to have you, very excited to have you. Over to you, Astuti.
Thank you. That was really generous introduction. Thank you, David. Thank you, Gaurav. I just realized now as I was listening to Gaurav, I started reprogramming or programming people's mind in AIESEC with the AIESEC values. Actually, it was really funny. Yes.
That's true.
So thank you for the opportunity to have me over. Burnout, yes, a big topic. And I must say the only reason why I get to know it is because I experienced it. And that was pretty scary. And I'm going to interweave my story in here. So my intention in this sharing is really just to bring awareness to you what it is, and give you a couple of tips on what you can do on a daily basis. Because as David is sharing, I completely agree. I think I have never experienced a time where health, physical, emotional, spiritual, has been asked to be very fit in all the 46 years of my life. So Thank you for AIESEC Alumni in Asia Pacific to invite me over and to share what I know so far. So Gaurav, would you mind sharing the next slide?
Absolutely.
So before I start going into the topic, I would like to ask you for a couple of minutes to just check in with yourself and write down your answers to a couple of these questions. The first question is, I'd like you to recall what happens in your body when you feel, instead of burnout, stressed out. So when you're stressing out, physiologically in your body, what is happening? So just take some moments to write it down. Yes, feeling sick. Yes, correct. In that specifically, what is it? A tension in the chest? Is it stress in your back or lower back stiffness? These kind of things. Feel free to write it down. And the second question now is, what are your feelings when you're stressed out? Angry, frustrated, sad, these kind of emotions. Defeated, this could be another word. Not feelings or numb is another one, yes. And the third thing is, what are you doing now so far to take care of the stress that you feel in your emotions and in your body? Perfect. So, Gaurav, do you want to share yours a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with the three questions, what happens I'm definitely feeling very, I guess, lethargic. In a way, it feels like it sometimes when you said the word defeated, right? Sometimes it feels like my soul is here and my body is here.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Just two separate entities, and I just don't have the will to want to do anything. Of course, when I'm stressed, in a different situation, I guess sometimes you panic and you go into the angry or frustrated mode also at times when you're feeling stressed. So those are definitely the changes that happen in my body. I start to sweat sometimes when I'm stressed. Want to drink water when I'm stressed. Sometimes you feel like stress eating, or just not eating also sometimes. It varies depending on the situation. But yeah, that's how like my body is. But if anyone else wants to share, more than welcome to have them share their experience too.
I think I see some chocolate. Yes.
Chocolate.
Chocolate has good properties in there. Yes, as long as it's not too much. Okay, so anything you do, Gaurav, to take care of the stress on regular basis?
Sometimes I think the best thing is just to switch off completely. I know it's hard. It is hard, when you're in that environment and the situation. But I try to just leave, like especially all my devices away, and just be.
Yeah.
If that's the correct thing to say, just be, and just try and let go of it, because sometimes it does take time. To let go of the thoughts that you have in your head, and I think it's completely normal because it happens to everyone. So that's, I guess, what I try to do. That's the first thing I try to do.
That's nice. Good. We're gonna speak a lot more about this.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you everybody for sharing in the chat. I kind of get a glimpse of it. So should we start then with the actual?
Okay, yeah, awesome. Yeah, so of course, like I mentioned, I don't want this to be just a presentation from Astuti. We'll have a conversation, Astuti and I, and you guys are welcome to chime in with your questions, or ask your questions, speak your questions whenever you want to. All right. So let's begin, Astuti. Let me ask you, of course, burnout. We've been talking about burnout for the past couple of minutes. So, what is burnout? What causes it? And who is kind of prone to getting it? Yeah.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you. So historically, when the term burnout came out actually in the 70s, in 1974, 1975, when an American psychologist was doing a lot of research about chronic exhaustions or chronic fatigue at work. And he came up with the word burnout. And since then, in some parts of the world, this is kind of this term. And in Switzerland, it's not something, because I'm based in Switzerland and I've been working here for a long time. It is something that had been spit out every now and then in conversations 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And last year, WHO was officially saying, look, we recognize burnout to be an occupational phenomenon. So it's real, because there's always a discussion like, it's not real, burnout is not real. But it is actually, because last year WHO was officially saying it is real. And so from this perspective, because they're looking at it only from professional perspective, there are three elements that can be identified within the umbrella of burnout. Number one is emotional exhaustion. So basically, when one of the ways that can be said about this is basically a fatigue, an exhaustion that comes from caring for too much and too long. So you just exhausted. The second element of burnout is depersonalization. So it's basically depletion of empathy, of caring and compassion because of the exhaustions for a long, long time. And the third thing is a decreased sense of accomplishment. So it's a feeling when you kind of give a lot and but inside you feel like it doesn't make any difference. And it is something that is profoundly felt, and a lot of time it is actually impacting the performance level. So there is a cynicism or criticism towards self. Mentally we are a bit distant from it, and we are just so tired, like physically tired, emotionally tired. Therefore, when you're coming into a meeting, you're already feeling like, my God, let me just get out of here. Like, when is it finishing? This kind of feeling. Okay. So it's like a sense of depletion. Now, as much as officially, I think WHO only recognizes professionally, it's not true that it only happens connected to workplace. So because I've been in a position where I was taking care of my elderly mother until she passed away, while working at the same time, I could experience in my body also the kind of stress over a prolonged period of time taking care of other people, which makes me think also, this is not just related to work. It's related to many things, including being parents, for example, because being parents is also about caring for too long and for too much, usually. So last year, I came across a book called, and I would recommend it for everybody to read it. It's called Burnout: How to Solve Your Stress Cycle by two sisters, the Nagoski sisters, Amelia and Emily. They were writing this burnout book towards the woman. But I think this goes for, as David says, everybody, men and women. And she was basically suggesting that, which I really, really resonating with, the people who are prone to get burnout are the people that has what they term as human giving or human giver syndrome. Okay, so let me just explain to you what it is. And then everybody can reflect whether you actually experience this. So they say in the book that there is an Australian philosopher called Kate Manne. She said there are two kinds of people. One is the group of people that calls themselves human beings, and the second group of people that call themselves the human givers. The human being is basically their role to exist is actually to express their humanity. And the human giver is to exist, to express themselves, to give to the human beings. So in a nutshell, in my very simplistic world, I would say the human giver syndrome is the group of people that assume responsibilities towards themselves, that I'm responsible for the happiness or the well-being of many. I mean, in a way, AIESEC people, a lot of them are like this. It's in one of the values. Sorry, guys. I wasn't thinking that when I
Thank you, Astuti. for
Yes,
that.
you're welcome. Yes, you're welcome. Let me try to put the balance back in. So, so basically, which for me resonates a lot, because if you think of parents, they never rest. They're always under stress because they're taking care of their kids, and us, the people who take care of our parents. So for me, the easiest way to understand whether you susceptible to this or not is by asking yourself, do I automatically deep down, do I have the feeling that I have to take care of other people? So if yes, if the answer is yes, then be mindful about this emotional exhaustions, because this is something that is actually fueling this burnout situation. So ask yourself, as a child to your parents, do you also feel responsible for your parents? As a parent to your children, do you feel responsible for your children? As a manager to your team, do you also feel the same? Like, I need to take care of my team at the cost of my own expenses. So basically, the human giver, we don't put our needs, we don't fulfill constantly our needs first. We give to the others. We exist to be responsible for others. And also as a team member to your peers and to your boss, do you also feel this? Because it's not, you can do this, you can also being super caring without having your own team. You just have this nature of that. So just ask yourself this. and the answer is yes, then this talk will be very good for you to just understand how the dynamic of this stress and burnout and emotions come into play. So these are basically what I feel the people who can get it or who are prone to get it, Gaurav. I, for example, tick all those. And that's what happened to me in 2008. I was working for UBS, and UBS, I was building up a new team at the time, and then there was a crisis in UBS. The share price went from, I believe it was 60 francs to 8 francs overnight. Okay. So Switzerland is, as you mentioned, is one of the two huge banks here, in which 1 out of 3 people on the streets are our clients. So you can imagine how that is for Switzerland, this small country that it is, but it is really sensitive with this kind of crisis. And at the time, they had to let go 2,000 people. So stress everywhere. And because I came from Indonesia, I have seen the economic crisis before in 98. I feel I have a way to regulate myself. So I was stepping up to 3 jobs, and then I burned down. and only after, when I experienced after the burnout, which is I couldn't even lift my body anymore from the desk, and I had to take complete 5 weeks off. My body was going through this kind of illness. It's almost like a fever. It's really have a strong physiological reactions, and also a sense of disconnections. It's a depressive feelings in a way. Only as I was coming out from it, I understood why. Because nobody asked me to step up, but because I feel like I could, I did it, and it has a cost. Everybody else is fine apart from me, basically. So yes, this yes to all this. I care for everybody. I need to do well for everybody. It's AIESEC thing. You know, I mean, I don't blame AIESEC, but it's a lot of AIESEC traits, basically. So yes, so that's basically the answer to all these 3.
Okay, that's very interesting, because because when I first looked at the question about who can get it, I guess like the first answer that comes to my mind, oh, like everybody. But then, you know, when you kind of break it down, like it makes more sense. And I guess what I'd like to believe that are also part of the human givers thing, especially, you know, going through AIESEC, you tend to want to put needs around you before yours sometimes.
Yes.
So that's very interesting.
Yes.
That's very interesting.
Yes.
Okay. So the next question about burnout, of course, is, you know, what are the common symptoms that people feel or go through, you know, when they're experiencing burnout?
Yes. So this is to watch out for, because it could be something you think is quite harmless, but it's actually accumulated over time. It's actually giving you signs where you're heading. So number 1 is you basically the feeling of overwhelm a lot. So you either feel like you're tired, for sure. Your mind works a lot and it cannot wind down enough for you to be able to have enough time to detox everything that is in the brain through when you are sleeping. And then you keep on going because your RPM is really high that you could not even entertain good sleep. So basically, when you start to feel like I'm more tired when I wake up, this is a really strong sign that something in your system, in your body, is not regulating or deregulating well. Then second thing, of course, you feel overwhelmed because you're tired. Things that doesn't gets you upset, okay? Because you become very sensitive, you lose your temper, you get agitated, you get irritated really quickly. Number 3, you start skipping meals or eating more the other way. So you goes into the extreme side of healthy balance.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and then what I did, I'm not proud of it. I had a lot of Red Bulls in my days because I worked really, really late, very, very, very beginning from 7 till 1 a.m. and then start again 7 to 1 a.m. So a lot of sugar intake. I mean, because we need this to boost up the energy level. So we take a lot of these things. So the drop, basically the energy drop is much more significant than even adding more to the exhaustion and the feeling of overwhelm. What happens to a lot of people also is they lose their memories. So they start forgetting things. They could not keep the train of their thoughts. And in my case, when it was really, really close to the actual shutdown of the body, I could speak to you and all of a sudden I don't remember who you are. Like I cannot recall your name. So this apparently happens where you were forgetting things. You go to fetch something and then you were there thinking, what am I here? Why am I in this room? Why am I near to the printer? And it's really difficult for you to recall what it is. So it's basically you are not able to maintain your memory is not it's not serving you well. So, and this is also the other things that I also hear a lot: health problems. Oh, I have digestive issues, I have migraines, I check to the doctor, they cannot find anything. This is the most common things that I've been hearing. In my case, I did not have something so severe, but in a lot of other places, people that I know, they have checked their gastrointestinal, they're being checked, and migraine, and then certain part of the body is acting out, etc. So this is, and doctor is saying, when the doctor is saying, we cannot find anything physiologically here. So it's, your organ is fine, you must be really stressed. So that's basically when the doctor was starting to realize, okay, this is all related to emotions that are starting to manifest in the body. So it sounded, it could look isolated somehow, but it's not. So the first thing is always think of this in the context of check in the balance. Like, have I been taking care of myself enough compared to what I've been giving out over a certain period of time? And if you can see clearly that I've been giving out more than I'm getting back in terms of energy for myself, in terms of time for myself, then you can be sure that this is giving you signals you are getting very, very exhausted. Do something. So for a lot of people that actually get to that stage where they either almost get into burnout, or in my case, get into burnout, as part of the coping strategy we did was we take sabbatical. Because then you can reset a little bit, put every responsibility aside for some time, and then do whatever we needed to do to actually coming out from it, basically, or to set the base to come out from it. When we already experienced burnout, and is in my case, I was officially diagnosed by the counselor at UBS. He was saying to me, you have the early symptoms of the burnout, so I'm glad you catch it now. Because the year I was diagnosed, there were 11 people going into the burnout clinic. Then that's when it's getting really severe. In my case, it took me about 2.5 years to find my balance again, because the body is really, really, really stressed out on all levels: mental, physically, spiritually. It's very, very stressed out. And it is basically an opportunity, of course, to reset. but it takes some time, some work to do, definitely.
Astuti, just try to don't want to barge in too much. There's that has a question, and he wants to ask you a little bit.
Sure.
Hi, Ade.
Hi.
Really nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Well, interesting story. Actually, I just knew. Oh, I feel bad about it. But this is my questions. If you ever put thought about it, I mean, like in the past, in that situations, would you think that you would have a choice for not getting burnout, or probably that would be you, that you choose to grab all those responsibilities?
Yeah,
I'm just curious about it. What do you think about it?
Yes, I understand. I ask myself this question, certainly. And this is also what I'm helping people with when they said, I want to get out of the burnout situation. There are many things that programming us to take responsibility. So it could be something that is in our family. So I'm the first child. A lot of people were the first child, and we in my family, or in the societal programming where I grew up, to be a good child is to be responsible. Okay, so we were given a lot. I was given a lot of responsibility, but also it's because my parents experienced something quite traumatizing when I was 4. So my dad almost died in a car accident, and because they were dancing with death for a period of time, they decided, okay, we need to get ready just in case we died, and it impacted how they raised me as a first child. So that's one. Number 2 is, I think there is an expectation in the society about women to give also. I'm not solely saying that it's only for women that there's an expectation to give a lot, but we have a specific role in the society, and I was also programmed for that in my family. The woman is giving a lot, and so I combined with how I was raised, and combined with the societal expectations for a woman, first child who is a woman, and my culture also, then I'm also being given, you a responsibility, you need to be responsible, blah blah blah. And the other thing also is my own. So I am also very curious. So it's a very curious person. I like to be useful. So so I take that. So it's a combination of multi-layered expectations, and this is why it's very, very difficult to detangle. And I think also when we think about workplace, simply just only on the workplace, not yet about parenting world and everything, what is a good employee? You know, you need to be able to deliver this and this and this in certain level of performance, and you need to be able to overperform over a number period of years, etc. So there's an external programming, certainly, from how the societal works. So I think for everyone, it's a combination of your preference and also the programming of the societal world. But what I would like to say from my own experience, and this is what I'm helping people with, is you can change your decisions, but there are things that you need to let go to make that easier, basically. I hope it helps.
That is nice. Yeah, that's good. I mean, like, we have a choice for that, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, Ade.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Astuti, is it okay to move on?
Yes, please.
Okay, awesome. So we spoke about symptoms, of course, and you spoke a little bit about how to prevent it. But how do you go into like the prevention mode? Prevention is better than cure, of course. So
yes.
How do you prevent it and kind of notice early signs before you really get to burnout?
This is for me was my blind spot. This is why I got into burnout, because I did not understand emotions. Okay, so as I said in the beginning, one and most important aspects of burnout is emotional exhaustion. Okay, and it's carrying too much for too long. So so in order to understand how to prevent it, we need to understand emotions. Unfortunately, we are not educated well for this. Never at school, and maybe at home in my own culture, we are not allowed to be emotional, basically. And I think this is not uniquely Asian people or Asian culture,
Yeah,
but
I think
I
most of the
experienced from
Asian culture.
yes, but in actually now because I work with people from everywhere, they all have the same issue. So we all have
Right.
issues with emotions, basically.
Right.
And so the key to understand about burnout prevention is really understand emotions. So I would like to start from the basic. So to speak about what is emotion literally, okay? So emotion in a non-woo-woo way is just an involuntary neuro biological response to a stimulus, okay? Our body is filled up with nervous system and organs. So when there is a stimulus, and I will speak about the stimulus a bit, that come from the outside of us or inside of us, because we can create the stress ourselves, the body is producing neurochemicals, okay? And this happens all the time, non-stop. So that's what emotion is this neurochemical responses that get triggered, that is produced by our neurological system and organs because of a trigger. It's involuntary. So it's not that they decided to be emotional, it just happens. And
Right.
so number one that was for me was the turning point of my life was, I'm not very emotional, I'm logical. It's not possible. Okay. It's not possible, guys. Let me just tell you. So we are actually emotional being that think sometimes, not the other way around. Okay. We are just, our body is just creating emotions all of the time. So so that's number one. We need to accept the fact that we are producing emotions. We cannot control whatever is happening outside. And we also cannot control our own thoughts that is creating this neurological response. Okay. So I'd like you to basically imagine if you are standing on the top of Eiffel Tower, okay, or any building that is tall, if you haven't been to Paris, and you look down. Imagine like right here, you're anywhere, wherever you are, just close your eyes, and you're like on a very high building with just like a fence which is just up to your belly. So you can just half of your body could come out, and just peek down a little bit and just observe what happens in your body. For the people who are so scared of height, they'll freak out by now. For the people who loves height, they're like, woo, this is so cool. And the fact of the matter is you are sitting in front of this Zoom, not in Paris, on top of Eiffel Tower or in a high building. So that stimulus, okay, it could be a thought that you created in your head or a real thought that you are actually in the Eiffel Tower in Paris. You can feel in your body, emotions came up as you're doing that, and your body start to physiologically respond. That's what emotion is. It started to come out because there's a stimulus, there's a change. And the reason why our body is creating these neurochemicals that is going on into different parts of your body is really with good intention. It's only our body is designed to keep us surviving. Okay. So for the people who really scared of height, they'll freak out and they'll be like, oh, and they just really becoming really weak and they have wobbly feet and everything. It's because the body is trying to get you come down, come out. It's not good for you. It's not safe for you, right? So, but what happens, what I want to say is emotion came out with all this neurochemicals happening. Now, the issue is knowing that we are always producing emotions all of the time. Stress happens when we are stuck in the emotions, particularly negative emotions. So let me just explain this for a minute. Emotion is like a tunnel. Yeah. So the body says, okay, it's danger, like they're creating neurochemicals, creating all these kind of feelings, emotion, physiologically, it's really, you can feel something is happening. And if we understand how this works, and what it does is it produces something, the emotion shows up, it will go through some kind of tunnel if we allow it, and then it will disappear. It will finish, it will come out. Okay. So emotions it's not meant to be staying in your body a lot or a long time. It's meant to just showed up and leave, showed up and leave. The problem with the modern world is we disturb the process of this starting emotion going into the tunnel. So sometimes it gets stuck. It doesn't leave your body fully. Okay. Why? Why is this happening? Number one, as one emotion is leaving, we are triggered again by something that is creating emotions. Then new emotions come up, and before it leaves, there's another one. So we are basically triggered, or we are experiencing a situation where the trigger for this, we are exposing ourselves to a situation that activate emotions. And this is what happens in COVID this year. We are always in a situation, even when we are not having COVID ourselves, we are always thinking about what happens to this person, that person. Oh my God, I hear somebody died and all this. And oh my God, all this, somebody's losing the job. My business is going a difficult time. We are not even leaving the house. We just sitting, and then there's all these things happening. And when we have this stimulus, even it's in your head, it's nothing that is happening to you. Your body is creating emotions. And that's exactly what happens all the time. So the other reason why the emotion can get stuck in the tunnel and not really leaving your body is sometimes the emotion is too intense. So like rage or despair or grief, this is too much to handle for yourself. So we just got lost in the process, and it was sometimes too heavy, too torturous, too scary. I think people get really scared with that. So then they stop, but then the emotion stays in your body. Okay. So this is the reason why. And then the other thing is also, and this is what we say about the human giver syndrome, is that we get stuck because we are trapped in this place where we cannot freely move through the tunnel because we have to help people. And this is why I was thinking, I mean, I'm very appreciative of the people in the hospitals right now. I mean, it's very stressful, and they don't have enough time to rest because they're on the go all the time. And this is example of, they want to actually be able to process the emotion, that they can't because they are needed. They have to do that, and they're exposed themselves. They're continuously exposed to this, their own emotions and the emotions of others. So this is very important. The other thing that make us stuck is social appropriateness. So sometimes it's not appropriate to react or to allow the emotions or to actually say, excuse me, I need to remove myself from this discussion. It's very difficult, socially inappropriate for my culture. This is also creating a lot of stress that is playing out when I had the burnout. It's not acceptable when you leave a meeting room, even though when you're very stressed out, because it's really not going nowhere. You stick there, everybody's sticking there, and because you wish to get fresh air, and sometimes the other people didn't see, and it's not appropriate to say, excuse me, I'm getting stressed out now, because people say, what, you're not supposed to feel anything. So these kind of things can play out. And the other thing also is, which is very valid, is sometimes it is not safe to react at that time exactly. So there are good reasons why, but just be mindful about this. If you have this information, you can manage yourself better, and you can manage whatever you can manage better. So, and this is what the exhaustion is coming from, is that the emotion gets stuck in the body and then accumulated over time. And when there's so many pent up emotion happening in body, your organ is going to be impacted by this. Your clarity of thinking is going to be impacted by this. Your feeling and how you process emotion is going to be impacted by this. And this is why there's this exhaustion, emotional, physical, and spiritual. Now, if there's one thing that I would like you to take from this whole thing, is this one thing that I'm going to share with you. To deal with stress, which is when we're stuck in the emotions, we need to be mindful of two things. One is the stress itself and the stressor. This was what I didn't know back in the days. I only dealt with the stressor. I did not deal with the stress because the stress is inside. So most people think a lot of people say, this company is becoming toxic for me, which is true. I'm going to quit and look for another job, which is a good solution, half solution. Okay. So living in the situation or the environment where it's creating stress is just half of the equation, even less than half of the equation, because inside you still have this accumulated stuff that needs to come out and being processed. Okay. So basically stress is this kind of stuckness that you need to fully process regularly. And I must say that this is like, you have to do it regularly. Okay. There is a way when you're already getting into the burnout to go backwards and declutter all these emotions. There's a way to do this. But if you want to prevent it, you need to be aware how to do this. And some of you already do it really well. So with running, and there are 7 ways that I could recommend you to do it. But I would like just to say, stressor and stress, they're not the same thing. So the stressor is the one that triggers you, and that triggers is outside or inside. You can be your own stress trigger by the kind of quality the things that you said to yourself, or how you think about yourself. So that comes from the belief. Okay. So for example, in my case, let me just give you into my case. One of the reasons why I was giving a lot and being responsible, my mother was really ill a lot when I grew up. I had this idea, for example, way back, developed way back early in my life, that in order to keep her alive, I need to be a good girl. It actually has nothing to do with this, but that's how I perceive it. That was the belief, okay? My parents is gonna have a heart attack if I don't get A at uni. Something like this. It's not exactly this, but yeah, close to this. So then every time I was not doing super well, I started to be the harshest critic toward myself, because in deep down, I feel like I'm going to not kill my mother, but I'm gonna make my mother suffer if I don't do that. Okay, but that's a belief. If you ask my mother, who's passed away already, she said, no, I didn't think that. She would say that, but I did that. I thought that for many years. So that stressor is external situation, but it also could be your own thoughts and beliefs about yourself and about life and about other people. Okay, so this is what I mean. The stressor is the belief. So if you want to be able to be healthy, you need to know what kind of belief, and a lot of this unconscious, by the way, that you run your life off so far. And just a little bit of information about this. I think about 85% of our belief, and this is a belief because it's automatic, we don't even realize this, form before the age of 10. Okay, what is right, what's not right, etc. And this is why there's this subconscious mind reprogrammer, is basically to change the belief. So that is the stressor. So stressor, external, internal. And then the stress itself is, how can we move this emotion through the tunnel, basically. So there are a few things. Some of you have said it. Number 1 is physical activity. Studies have shown that 20 to 60 minutes daily usually does it for most people. And physical activity could be sports, could be dancing in your house, could be anything that is basically moving. And by the way, I do the dancing in the house now. I don't really like sports, but yeah. Put the right, very good music and just wiggle yourself for 20 minutes. So 20 to 60 minutes, do what is very nice for you. People ask me, do you need to go? If there's a stress that comes specifically from that day, do I need to revisit that specific memory? If this is so profound, it's probably good. Just access again the emotions and then start doing the physical movement to the emotions that came up. It doesn't need to be all the time, but if there's something quite significant, it's worth to go. For example, if you get upset with your colleagues or you scream like I did, around the time of burnout, I screamed to one of my colleagues, and yeah, it was not pleasant for me, nor for anyone. But I was really like, and I felt really guilty afterwards, but it was really out of frustration of situations. Second, which I do a lot, and you can do it in any situation, is breathing. So in the meeting, when you start to get frustrated, or when you get a telephone call and it's like, oh my God, this has happened, take about a couple of minutes to do 3 sets of deep breathing. And it's the easiest is to do, the count is 5 breathe, 5 inhale, hold it for 5 seconds or 5 counts, breathe out for 10, and then hold it for another 5, and again. So in the exhale needs to be longer, and there should be a break in between inhale and exhale. What will happen when you are breathing? You're going to come back into your body. You're going to be in the now. You are self-regulating your nervous system, basically, just calming you down. Okay, so that's the easiest. You can do it anywhere. So in the meeting, when you start to feel, oh my God, my body is becoming tense here, headache is coming up, I could feel the tense on the neck, start doing this. And then social positive interactions, not only with the people that you know, it could be with random people, like start chatting with people in Starbucks if you still go. I haven't been in Starbucks for a while since COVID, but if you are meeting people you don't even know, just have a social positive interactions. It's just remembering, it's just telling the body to feel safe when you have these connections with other human beings. Laughter is the other one. So it's no joke, guys. Like, to be resilient, you need to be able to laugh a lot, and truly laughing from the belly. Just allow yourself to just find the funny in these whole situations and then laugh about it. Okay. The next is affection. It could be a cuddle. It could be kisses. Apparently studies have said, kiss for 6 seconds. Not 1 second 6 times, but 1 time 6 seconds at least. Okay, that's actually going to deregulate the nervous system. And when you hug somebody 20 seconds, where really hug, really like, not like plank, hugging like a plank of wood, no, but really just completely embrace the connections, the heartbeat, the energetical exchange between the heart of you and the other person is helping to regulate our nervous system, because this is how us as a child feeling safe with our mothers before, when we came up from the womb, from her womb. So our body is designed for this. So 20 seconds at least, and 6 seconds of kissing is actually very, very useful. And crying. Yes, crying is very important, because crying is this allowing whatever emotions to go through the tunnel. I have a lot of clients who said, why am I crying a lot after a session with you? Is this okay? It's absolutely okay, because the emotion is leaving. So it's a good sign when you cry. So crying, on the contrary of how a lot of us being raised, it is a very good thing. And this is, if you notice a child, this is why they don't have stiffness in their bodies. Like my 2-year-old nephew can still suck his thumb from his toes up, no problem. And when he feels like he's upset, he cries, and he cries until he feels like he finishes. So because his body is regulating a certain kind of emotions, it's just an impulse that is an involuntary reaction for what he experiences. And then he just does that, and then he feels better. And what I also say to a lot of people, when the child cries, let them cry, because this is actually going to save you a lot of headache later. So crying is good. And as adults, allow ourselves to cry, because as you are doing that, the emotion is leaving the tunnel, completing the tunnel. And the last is creative expressions. It could be painting, writing a poem, anything that doesn't require here. Okay, but moving down here to the body. The idea is move from the head, go into the body, because where is the emotions? Down here, not here, here in the body, up, down. So we are thinking and we are feeling is stored in the body. So for example, painting, dancing, anything creative that doesn't
Right.
require a lot of thinking, but following the heart, that's allowing this. So you have more options now to actually do this, but this has to be done regularly, because especially now we get a lot of stress. The trigger is much more than or faster than the actual time for this to pass, basically. Yeah. So that's how to prevent it. And God, I think we
Awesome.
need to wrap up, no?
Yeah, we are short on time, definitely, but
Yeah.
I think you did cover most of like how to cure it, or what
Yes.
does one do when they experience burnout, and you spoke about crying, creative expression. I think what was really interesting when you talk about how to prevent it is the social appropriateness and the stress and stressor. I think that's very,
Yes.
very important to be mindful of, and I guess we just don't understand. We don't really know that half the problem, half the solution, not the whole
Yes.
solution. When you're in that situation. So that was very, very interesting. But if you have any last remarks on how to kind of how to kind of cure it, please go
Yes,
ahead.
quickly. Yes. So basically, just on this quick one, if you experience burnout now, allow yourself the time to heal. It takes time. So don't feel bad that you feel like, oh my God, it takes me ages. There's a study saying it's between 2 to 5 years. So it's fine. You need 2 years, 2 years and a half, it's fine. Just think about it from the perspective, I have the opportunity to reset. Because if you want to prevent burnout again from the future, you need to revisit the belief that is the stressor in your head, because that's how this emotion gets stimulated. So you need to do a lot of work also on the belief system. How can you move yourself away from the human giving to the human being who support others? There's a difference between sacrificing myself for others and I am a human being also that helps other people without having to sacrifice myself. That is very important. But of course, the order would be the physical. Usually your body is going to go haywire already. This is when you have burnout. So start from the physical health and then move into the emotional and the spiritual health, basically. So, but my biggest learning point is you need to get to the root cause of why is it that I am not able to take care of myself, and why am I giving too much without even realizing it? Yeah.
Okay.
So yes.
Awesome. That was amazing. Really enjoyed it. I'm sure a lot of people enjoyed it as well. I saw some thumbs up coming in during the conversation, so that was really good. But yeah, I just wanted to say again, thank you so much, Astuti, for everything. It was really good. I highly encourage people to stay for like another 5-6 minutes if they can, because we have some announcements to make, and of course, there'll be a little bit more of an informal Q&A phase with us if you want to stick around. But yeah, moving on to the announcements. Of course, there is a feedback form. So if you do want to feedback to Astuti or our team as well, that'd be really, really good. To give us feedback. I think Stefan will put it in the chat too, so you can just access it. But the feedback form is bit.ly/AAAP feedback RAT4. And this is case sensitive, so make sure your RAT is capital, and RAT stands for Regional ATOP. That. So that is our feedback form, and Stefan will put it in the chat for you guys to access. And if you do want to contact Astuti, if you do want to follow her, this is her website, of course. This is the email on top. You can follow her on Instagram too if you want to, at Astuti Marto. She's just started her YouTube channel with one other mindfulness coach, if I'm not mistaken, a couple weeks ago. So it's very new, very fresh ideas. I think I was watching one of the videos, and it's really, really cool. And of course, if you want to subscribe to her podcast, you can as well. And that's the link for Anchor. I'm sure it's available on like Apple or Spotify and Google Podcasts too, and different other podcast platforms. But you can find her on Anchor as well at /upliftmylifetoday. Awesome. Okay, so that is how you can contact Astuti, and I'll come back to this slide later if you guys want. I do want to introduce our next speaker, and Stefan again will put the registration link in. Our next speaker will be Mr. Dale Martin, and he's the president and CEO of Siemens in Hungary. So very, very cool AIESEC, and he's a very good friend of David's as well. And thank you, David, for putting me in touch with him. And he's going to talk about innovation to empower purpose, and a little bit about innovation and how you can empower profit as well. So it's next month, Sunday, 17th January. The timing and of course everything will be on the registration link. So to register, go to bit.ly/regional ATalk. So that's the registration link. Highly encourage everyone to register for the upcoming regional ATalk. And with that, I do want to make two new announcements, and I'll let Stefan and David take over this. Stefan,
do you want to go first?
David, you go.
No, you go. It's about the YouTube channel.
So hi everyone. So what we're gonna do is we've already created a YouTube channel for AIESEC Alumni Asia Pacific, where we're gonna put a lot of the, especially all these ATalks, all the recordings will be put onto there, as well as other content. And please look forward to it. You can use the bit.ly link, AAAP capital YouTube, and you can subscribe and all that, or you can just go online on YouTube and just search AAP AIESEC Alumni Asia Pacific. So that's a little bit from me.
Awesome. Thank you, Stefan. And David, over to you.
Okay. I don't suppose we actually have the slide that shows the logo.
I don't think so.
Okay, no problem. I mentioned before that 20 years ago, I burnt out, and I actually woke up one morning and without notice, it was like walking through water. That was the symptom for me. And over the years, I've realized that one thing I didn't have access to back then were confidants and mentors and people with whom I could feel vulnerable and open and honest. So you'll find if you sort of get me over a cup of coffee and ask me why I'm driving many of the initiatives that we're putting in place, it's because I truly believe that the alumni community provides this sort of resource to all its members. During COVID, I lost count to the number of people who reached out to me, whether it was for moral support or for contacts or goodness knows what. And the truth of it is I reached out to other people too. Whether they were old friends, I've made new friends in the process. And one of the things that we created for the alumni, apart from the obvious things that are coming, like mentoring, and some of you already know about A groups, which are all to do with peer support, is a harmony. And if you imagine a slogan, which is simply good health for a better life, this is all to do with being more productive because we have longevity in our lives and all the rest of it. So the bottom line is that we've created an account on Smule, which is an online karaoke platform. And we're going to be sharing that with everybody. And we're going to be inviting you just for fun to collaborate on things. And this will be the only chance you get possibly in your lifetime to perform and have it seen by thousands of people around the world, and no one expects you to be in tune. And for us, a harmony isn't just about music. It'll be various initiatives, including music and fitness and other things as well. So please keep a lookout for that. That's all I wanted to say about it. Thanks, Gaurav.
Awesome. No problem at all. So all the links will be in the chat, all the bit.ly links for you guys to access. And now I do open the space up for any informal questions or any questions that you have for Astuti or anything else that Astuti wants to say. If anyone has any questions, I highly encourage you guys to speak if you can. If not, you can put it in the chat too, and Stefan look at it.
I think Fatih, you had a question about resets. Was Astuti able to answer your question?
I guess yes, the answers were, I think, relevant to my question, but I feel like it's more on short-term dealing with stress. I would really like to know more about yeah, how to reset for a long-term result or long-term effect.
Yes, so I'll try to address that, Fatih. By the way, I also like singing. It's not very good voice, but I like singing. So, as I mentioned earlier, I think for long-term success, you need to go into the belief, the unconscious belief, because belief is what is driving our behavior and our habits. Okay, so for example, I give you a very, very concrete example. I used to believe that my existence is to give and not to take. Therefore, I'm very quick in helping others, but I never, by my body is not helping me to feel comfortable to ask for help. So, and this is not sustainable, because if you need, you want success for a long, long time, you need to be able to do that, to be able to do both, take and give. So I had to go into the deep-rooted reason or belief about who I am that stops me from only thinking that my existence is to give, and to let go, and so to pinpoint what habit that is related to this belief, and then start deciding how will I do it differently. Okay, and this kind of belief is super fundamental in our lives. And they normally unconscious. So the whole thing about burnout is actually taking out the invisible things that is driving the way we are, or who we think we are, or make us think who we are, to put it up into the surface so we can decide, you stay, you out, you stay, you out. I'll keep you, I don't keep you anymore. Okay. Now, in the process of this, I'm just going to warn you, when you're going on this deep level, there will be shift in dynamics of relationships with the people around you. Some will be becoming stronger, some will dissipate. Because as soon as you change your belief, you want to show up differently in life. You will develop good habits. If you were a person that found it very difficult to say no, you will learn to say no, and some people won't like it. Yeah. So I always say to people, it's a long-term it's really strong commitment when you're really thinking long-term. And you need to also realize that part of the process is that some relationships are going to get even better, and some will disappear, and new relationship will come out. And people often feel scared when this familiar situation change, but this is just part of the process. I don't know if that helps. Yeah.
Yes, it completely helps. Actually, it's something I'm going through as I came back home after a long time. And I had
Yes.
a similar experience in my childhood. Like my mom got diagnosed with a chronic disease at a young age, and I had to, take up responsibility in my family. And now coming, like, I feel like everyone is putting that expectation on me, and it's not necessarily like 100% what I can offer right now.
Right.
So I think, yeah, what you just mentioned is very relevant. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
You're very welcome. It's really going into the deep, Fatih. It's really just, do I feel guilty for living the life that I truly want, even though
Exactly.
the people around me don't experience that? This is so hard, but it is doable. Okay. So with the right support and the right process, you can free yourself from this. But this is where you need to go. So yes, that's for the long term. But yeah, it's a way to approach it.
All right. Very nice. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So we have Gaurav, we have time for one more question. We have one more question from Alina.
Awesome. Yeah.
So they asked, what is the connection between loneliness, resilience, and burnout? And they would like to know your perspective on loneliness today, Astuti.
Yes. So loneliness is a feeling because we believe that, because of a belief that we have. So if I were to describe, loneliness would be something in the surface. So if we have an iceberg, okay, loneliness would be the symptoms on the top of the ocean, the water, and underneath this, the iceberg underneath the water, is the root cause of the loneliness. There are beliefs there, invisible beliefs. So because we feel lonely, and if we, because of a certain belief, so for example, if we have a belief, and this is really common, okay, people, when I ask a lot of people, what are your worst fear? And a lot of people say, my worst fear, if my life collapsed, my worst fear in that moment would be to be all alone out there and die outside by myself. Did they ever experience that in their lives? No. Did they ever experience something? But there's a deep-rooted belief, okay? So that's what I mean. When there is this really deep belief that there is no, I'm all alone in this life, even when I have parents, even when I have family, and this was triggered by something that had happened in our past or in childhood, or even when in our mother's womb, this is also impacting how we feel about our lives, then we are going to manifest that in a behavior. One of the behaviors could be this: I'm the giver, I'm not supposed to take. Okay, this is just one of many possible behaviors. And over time, because you're not allowing things to come in, you are disconnected. You are giving, but you're not connected somehow. It's not a two-way thing. It's human. We need both. We need to give and we need to take. Without that, we are not fully functioning well. As you know, with the stress varieties, this is all about connections, actually, with your own body and with other people. So when we are manifesting our life, or we're behaving in a certain way that is based on the belief that is making us feel lonely, we are going to get burnout really easily, because everything becomes overwhelming eventually. Over time, it's like you are exhausting yourself. So it's all very connected. So if somebody is experiencing a burnout, stress comes because you're stuck in these feelings of I overwhelmed, frustrated, and all this. Then my suggestion would be, go and find out what is it that is in your subconscious mind that is contributing to this feeling of loneliness, and then work with that, because there must be a belief there that makes you feel lonely.
Okay, awesome. Alina, I hope answered the question. I think we should be, that's about it for the questions. If anyone, of course, wants to contact Astuti, they can. I will put on the slide once more. So give me 1 second. Here's the slide for you guys to see. If you guys want to contact Astuti, if you want to subscribe to her podcast and her YouTube channel too, if you want to follow her on Instagram as well, more than welcome to do that. Again, thank you, Astuti, so much. Thank you to Stefan and Lisa and David, who is the team that is responsible to create this regional A Talk. And Astuti, I'll leave it up to you for any last remarks that you have.
I am very grateful to have the opportunity.
Awesome.
So thank you very much. Yeah, feel free to reach out to me if they have follow-up questions. So yeah, good luck in taking care of yourself.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, everyone. Have a very good Sunday. And I hope to see you at the next A Talk. See you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stefan, David, Gaurav, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a great Sunday.